Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm so delighted to be joined by Will Forte to talk all about his Peacock series, MacGruber, of which he is the titular character MacGruber, obviously, as well as creator and executive producer on the series. And you and John Solomon and Jorma Taccone have kind of been banding around ideas for MacGruber for years, and it sounds like there was a Google Doc that had about 11 years worth of, every little idea and inflection that you could have had for character. And I was interested, was that something where you were initially eyeing the idea of a movie and thinking about larger narrative arcs that would fit into a feature, or was it just kind of thinking about a lot of small kind of character situations, moments, potential lines of dialogue for him, and how did that kind of end up influencing what we've ended up seeing in the series?
Well, I think we definitely had first thought about it as a movie idea, and so everything we would jot down. Sometimes it would be 3 words, just any kind of dumb little MacGruber phrase, or even a dumb song that felt like the right kind of thing for the that we would put in there, because we have a kind of very specific type of music that we like. So I remember writing, when we wrote down Lover Boy, loving every minute of it. That was little things like that were in the doc. So it was a very long doc. I'm not sure it was a very useful document. I keep saying doc. I'm sorry. But yes. So it was, and what ended up happening. Actually, it was a useful document, because instead of we even started writing an outline for a movie. And then when we realized that it might work as a television show, we kind of jumped. We used what would have been the first act of the movie as basically the pilot of the show. So a lot of that stuff was there were a couple new elements, but a lot of it was kind of where we were headed if we had turned it into a sequel.
Yeah, and obviously we're coming back to this character several years after the movie, and time has passed, but he hasn't really grown or evolved, which is kind of a very specific comedic choice for him as a character. Because
how dare you say that?
Don't tell him.
I will.
But it's interesting because you could have picked up right from the back of when the movie finished. You could have had him have an arc in between and kind of introduce where he is now. But it's very MacGruber that he's still very stagnant. Did you consider different possibilities of, if you wanted to allow the amount of time that passed for him to be the same, and if you wanted there to be any changes to him in that time?
I know, yes, for sure. For sure, it always made sense to us that he would not have really evolved at all, or he thought he had evolved and hadn't at all. It was his version of evolution. But it did. There was something nice about having such a large gap in between when the movie had come out and when we set this series, because there was something that, I don't know, it just, the more time that passed, the more I don't know, the more important the relationships became. I don't know, it just seemed, it was very special for us after such a long break to be able to get to do this again, because we had always had hopes that we'd be able to do it, but it was I don't know, realistically, it just, the more time passes, the more you think, oh, this is just a pipe dream. So it was very special for us to be able to get to do this, because we just have so much fun together, all of us, and this was such a crazy dream. So to see this dream realized was really fun. And on a production level, the time passing just helped with, I don't know, it just seemed like it made the connections between the characters a little more special as well. Such a long period of time between when MacGruber had seen Vicki and just everything. This such a large period of time where we got to have fun figuring out what had happened in the characters' lives and stuff. That was a fun challenge, and we had fun figuring out the answers to those questions.
I mean, I like what you were saying just there as well about, even if he hasn't evolved, he might think that he has. And that's one of the really great things about this character is you have the reality of the world, and then you have MacGruber's version of reality and the way that he sees everything and the way that he sees himself in a lot of situations. And you find that that allows a lot of comedic space that you can kind of write to and play into, given that there's always a different reality for him as a character than everything around him.
Oh, yes, it is very fun to write for this character that is so oblivious. Of course, he thinks he's the most evolved, person that has ever existed. He knows the answers to everything MacGruber does, and it's very, very fun to write that kind of stuff. And all the time we will be saying, "Is this too stupid to like? Is this too stupid to write?" And all the time it's like, no, it kind of makes sense for MacGruber. He's pretty stupid. But I mean, there are times he spells his name wrong when he fills out the forms to get out of prison and get his stuff back. So that's we're not talking about a genius here, but he thinks he's a genius.
And obviously,
sometimes he is. Sometimes that's the fun thing is there are times when he can't do anything. We are bouncing all over the place with him, because sometimes he can't fight at all, and then the next scene he's taking down a whole army with these very skilled moves. So it's long ago we kind of gave up on any kind of justifications for like, oh wait, but he doesn't know how to tie his shoelaces in this scene, but here he can dismantle a bomb and all the we gave up on that stuff, and certainly we have discussions about it, and we're aware of it, but we also just said, what, it's just we just kind of write what tickles us and hope that people like it.
And with what you were just saying as well, that also kind of leans into a lot of the physical comedy, when you're saying that sometimes he can't fight at all, sometimes he's got these very skilled moves. And so how do you make that determination of when is he going to have a moment where he's got this kind of prowess and he knows exactly what he's doing, and kind of working with the stunt team and being like, okay, like what are the moves that we're going to use for this scene? And then the moments where it's more comedically funny to go into a space where he just doesn't know what he's doing and he's just fighting from like ferocity but no skill.
Oh wow. I don't know that just as we go through the writing process, it's for the movie it was just John and Yorma and I writing this stuff together, and then for this for the series we had 4 additional writers, because our wonderful writer's assistant wrote a sketch wrote an episode and Freudian slip, and also was weighing in all the time on in the room for ideas, jokes and plot stuff. So we this is all just stuff that we would kind of decide as a group, and it was these, John and Yorma and I obviously have a long history together, and then the additional writers all came from the Last Man on Earth writing staff, so we had been together for a long time. So it was a really fun experience getting to have more people giving input on stuff. And I don't, for that stuff, it just kind of everything seems to fall into place. You just start writing down things that make you laugh, and then it just leads into these other things, and there's never quite rhyme or reason for how that stuff happens. It just kind of there's part of it that feels like it just kind of magically appears, and then there's that part of it that you also then remember the months and months of work and just going nuts trying to figure out plot stuff. But it's like that thing where I just got done working on something and you think back to, like, at the very end of it, you think like, oh my God, that flew by. But then if you think of a specific scene that happened 4 weeks ago, it feels like that happened 10 years ago. It seemed like it went so slowly, but also happened in the blink of an eye. And that's kind of what the writing process is like. You kind of, toward the end of it, you forget about all the pain in the ass stuff of trying to figure out this and that, and just, I don't know, everything seems like it just kind of wrote itself.
I was also interested performance-wise in kind of what the specifics are of MacGruber comedy, because, when you watch it, it is a comedy and it's very funny and he's a hilarious character, but that comes from you delivering things like deadly seriously. So it's kind of a very different style of approach. And I was just interested in what you find the specifics of the comedy of MacGruber and the fact that you're delivering comedy, but through a completely straight face, tend to be for your performance.
Oh man, I mean, that's another thing where it's just a case by case basis, and we have a lot of fun experimenting, and we'll do, it's such a team effort. I may have an idea of what's the right way to do. I mean, most scenes it's pretty obvious kind of how we all intended for it to be played. Oh, this is a, but then it's just so great to have these other people around, John and Yorma specifically, but everybody else who worked on the show who have these wonderful ideas, and like, oh, why don't you try playing it like this, and then we'll, and they kind of unlock this one performance in a scene which I just, for some reason wasn't able to see, and you go afterwards and you go, oh yeah, that's so obviously how I should have played it. Why was I thinking to play it this other way the whole time? So it's, it's such a team effort, the whole thing. So but it's fun. It's fun because there are, it really is a fun character to play because he's just such an idiot. So I get to, say a bunch of really fun stuff, and it's a lot of wish fulfillment. It's kind of doing all the MacGruber stuff. There's a lot of it that was the same kind of fun that I got to have doing The Last Man on Earth, where there are just tons of fun experiences. It's just such a weird, different type of character that it's you end up getting to do a lot of stuff you don't get to do in most roles.
Yeah, it also seems like one of the fun aspects as well must be just the places of absurdity that you're able to play around in and try things in. It's like almost with like MacGruber, it's like nothing's too crazy to try and see if it works for a scene. Do you find you just have to kind of like very much like let go within yourself in order to just be like, this is where the line feels like it should be, but we're going to try it, we're going to try and push it further and find where we can like take it to an even more absurd place comedically?
Oh yeah, I mean, that line is constantly shifting, and I don't know that any of us know where that line is, and sometimes we know that we're probably creeping over that line or even just bounding over that line way too far. But that's kind of the other fun of this is if you have something like that, sometimes if you ground it just the teeniest bit, you can get away with it. So it's a fun challenge to try to, because I think we all usually want to ignore that line and not worry about it and just go for it. If it, again, it's a case by case thing where if you really, sometimes it's worth it to take the chance to if it makes you laugh enough, or we're usually making decisions based on what tickles us, not what we think people will like, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like it. but we like we will always be very selfish about that stuff and do the stuff that we think is fun. And it doesn't mean that we make the right decisions, but we make the right decisions for us. So that's also another thing that's so fun, is getting to do this with John and Norma. They're like families now, and obviously, Kristen and Ryan, just to have everybody together, and God, so many people on the crew are people that we worked with from the original movie, and then a lot of people from the Last Man on Earth crew. So it was just so fun to hang around with these wonderful people that you've gotten to know over the years.
And with the fact that you were just talking about, you always tell this story in the way that you want to. It's the humor that you find funny. Everybody's thinking about, what do we think is going to be really funny for this moment? I love the fact that when you talk about the film, that you said when we kind of like looked back on it, even just a few weeks later, that you wouldn't have done anything differently with the film. It was like you put out the story and you told it in the way that you wanted to. Is that something that you feel like you've been able to carry through onto other projects in the same way, where it's very much, I need to make the creative choices that are right for me and how I want to tell the story, and that's the way that I've got the best approach for it?
Yes and no. I think with MacGruber, this is all just, this was our thing, and thankfully Lauren, with both the movie and the series, was able to put us in a position where we could really make whatever decision we want to make, and not a lot of people get that opportunity, and Peacock was so wonderful with us that they really liked it. With the movie, I remember there being a little bit of pushback, and Lauren really surrounded us, and Peacock was so game for us to really do what we wanted to do. That was really fun to have. We didn't really even need Lauren's protection, because Peacock was also protecting us. So that was great. So we, that. But if I'm doing somebody else's thing where it's they've created it, and I'll certainly have ideas for what the character will be, but I just want to do what they see in their heads. So at times that can be a problem sometimes, because you certainly don't want to be thinking all the time, oh, what does this person want? But like, my main goal is, I just want whoever wrote the thing, whoever's directing it, I want them to be happy. And I certainly don't want to go in there and go, hey, I want to get my vision of this thing. I mean, not that that's not important. I want to try to bring something to the table, but like, if I do something that I'm happy with that the director hates, then I feel like I've failed. I want something that I'm happy with that makes the director happy. So, but I don't know. Usually, you can, when you read a script, you're like, oh, I can see what they're going for here, and it's very rare that you read a script that you're like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do in this, and so most of the time, I feel like you go into something where you're all on the same page.
No, I mean, it's an interesting answer, because you're right. It does depend on, there's a difference when you've got creative autonomy over a project versus how you kind of have to approach coming into other people's projects. And with MacGruber, I feel like one of the things that you've created is this great comedic world, but also kind of this like really wonderful sandbox that people love coming to play in. The way that Kristen Wiig, the way that the rest of the cast kind of talk about the environment of working there, and it just being a place where, going back to what you were saying before, like nothing's too crazy to try, but it feels very safe to try things as well. It feels like there's a safety net creatively with everybody around. How do you feel like you've kind of tried to create that sort of sandbox and that playful environment where people feel that way coming back into the MacGruber world for the series?
Well, I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think that getting to work with somebody like Kristen Wiig, it is. I wish I could. You know, that's one of the best experiences ever because she's you know, perhaps the most talented person on the planet, but she's also this wonderful person who I've now been lucky enough to be friends with since whatever 2005, and so it's just this awesome experience. I think that though we definitely go into this wanting everybody to have a great time. Like we want this to be uh, we want it to turn out well, and we want it to you know to turn out the way that we envisioned it on the page. But we also want people to have a good time. So you know, it's all about I don't know, just making sure everybody is always comfortable and happy and having fun. But certainly there are times when it's tricky because like Kristen and I get the really fun jobs, which are we get to be the real weirdos, which is fun. Everybody else has a slightly trickier job because they're you know most of the time trying to we need them to play it ultra straight. So I think Ryan is the glue that holds the whole thing together because he's you know he's with us all the time and he's got to create this believability that he would stay with us and stay on the mission while still acknowledging what fuckheads we are. Like so it's a challenge in the writing to make sure that but way more in his execution. And he has such a difficult role, and he's so good at it, and really like I don't know. I hope he knows how important he is to this thing because he's just like this thing wouldn't work without him. Um, and uh, everybody else is just tricky because like um, you need them to play it ultra straight and but there are times when there's that line where it could veer off into goofiness that kind of takes away from it and it's just you know trying to make sure we're all on track but man everybody just did such a good job like Lawrence Fishburne. I mean come on he is such a treat and like to get to work with somebody I loved hanging out with him so much. He's such a cool guy and just hearing his stories. But there are, you know, he does the same thing like where, you know, in the very beginning he's playing this role super straight and then later, spoiler, something happens and his character morphs into something else and there are some very fun things that he gets to do, which are not. He doesn't have to play it as straight, and it's I don't know. It's really fun to get to play. I mean, you know, we're talking about one of the best actors in history here, so it's you know it's just fun getting getting to work with him or Sam Elliott. I mean, oh my god. I remember he came in. I think his very first scene was this big emotional scene where I'm just playing it emotionally like a just a big turd and he is delivering what I think could have been this Oscar worthy performance. Just like I think all of us were blown away like oh my god, I almost cried from watching his performance was just right on the money and yeah, that was a real treat getting to work with him.
It is such a great cast, and it's been so wonderful to see the world of MacGruber kind of come back to our screens again. So really appreciate you talking about the series. Thank you so much, Will.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you talking to me about it.